Hi, it's Jennifer from Shabby Fabrics. I have a fun and practical project for you today. This uses the June Tailor Hanging Towel Kit, and look how adorable this is. We even made fabric covered buttons to match here. What a great item for your kitchen. Super cute as, a housewarming gift. We are going to be making these in a variety of collections, and the collection that I'm using today is Make Yourself at Home by Kimberbell Designs by Maywood Studio, and it's just adorable. We've made them you can just go on and on and on, and like I said, we're going to be having these available in a variety of collections. We have kits available, and in your kit you will not only be getting the June Tailor Hanging Towel Kit, but of course the fabrics to make that, as well as the fabric covered button. But if you're mostly a quilter, you may be a little intimidated sometimes by trying projects that are outside the world of quilting, and I am finding more joy and just using fabric in different ways. And of course I love my quilts too, but let's jump right into this project, and I just want to show you what you're getting in your kit and how fun and easy it is to make these towels. You're going to be wanting to make them over and over again. So in the kit, as I mentioned, you'll be getting, it's a pre-printed, it's kind of a batting. And that's really the upper portion here that you can see in the overhead camera. That's the upper portion, of course, of our towel. You'll also get, it's called a waffle weave towel fabric, and that of course is your toweling. And on the back side, you'll have your instructions. But I'm going to make it even easier, so you don't even have to worry about reading those instructions. We're going to go over everything from top to bottom. So step one is they recommend that you go ahead and wash your toweling because it will shrink, and you want to get that shrinkage out of the way ahead of time. They also recommend that you zigzag stitching the raw edges before you wash, and that's just going to help reduce the fraying. So we've washed this one. I just want to show you what that's going to look like so you can get a feel for, when you have these kind of frayed edges, that's normal. We just zigzagged around the edge. We have noticed on the toweling kits that we've seen so far, there is one side that kind of has what I would call a thicker, I don't know if you call it a selvage, but we didn't zigzag on that because we didn't. But on the sides that had the raw edges, we went ahead and zigzagged and just wash as you normally would and throw it right in the dryer. So when it comes out, of course, you'll want to trim that up. And we pressed it. You might also want to put in some sizing. We will be pleating our towel a little bit later, so having the sizing in it just helps those pleats to just stay in position. Let me put that aside for now, as the first thing that the instructions have us do is we'll be cutting our fabrics. You'll be using one fabric for the top, one fabric for the back, and a different fabric for the trim. The pattern, of course, tells you what size to cut your two fabrics. For your front and back of your topper, those are cut to 8 by 11, and then for your trim, you'll have two pieces that are 3 by 8 and one that's 2 by 22.5 inches long. So let's go ahead and start with this trim piece here, and that's for the upper portion. It's both on the front and on the back, so that's why you need two. Step one is to just simply fold wrong sides together and press. And you'll do that for both pieces, and we've done that ahead of time. Once that's done, you'll take your two pieces. I'm going to start with this one first, and then let's talk about directional fabric, because as you can see from the overhead camera, see how there's words here, make yourself at home. It's just love at home. It's just really sweet. You have to be mindful of directional fabric, especially if it's going to be the one coming up and over the top, because on the back, of course, the words need to be upside down, so when the flap comes over the top, the wording is right side up. So if you are using directional fabric, just be mindful of the side that you want to put that on, so that when it's looking straight on, it's presenting the way that you want it to. So with our trim piece, as I mentioned, fold in half, right sides together, sew 1/4 inch. I've done that ahead of time. You grab that out, and you will press that seam toward the upper portion of our topper. So let's do that now. So you can see how that's now the upper portion. For the back side, this is how you kind of deal with the directional fabric. We know that that too will have, again, a trim piece. In fact, let me just iron that together. I want you to be able to clearly see this. Of like, do I put it here or do I put it here? Let's look at that. We know that on the back side, we have a trim piece, and we need our words to be upside down so that when they come over the top, they're right side up. So that's the side. You'll go ahead and put your trim on. Again, 1/4 inch seam allowance, press that. So now we'll press that one. Again, pressing toward the larger portion. All right, we have our 2 halves together. We're going to place our 2 halves together, I should say. Right sides together. And of course, you want to have those seams match. You want that nice transition where you don't really see a jump. You want to make sure that those are lined up nicely. And this is where the batting will come into play. Now remember that piece of batting. You know this, if I place this here, it's too big. The instructions have us trimming our piece. This is something I wanted to point out to you because that was a little confusing to me when I first read the instructions. It specifically says to go ahead and cut directly on this line and 1/2 inch all the way up. So, and I also trimmed it a little bit here. The whole idea is that I wanted to be able to see my fabric and see where my batting is. So you need to trim on this line 1/2 inch and just come all the way up. And if you've got a lot of fabric at the top here, go ahead and just trim that. So again, it's about 1/2 inch away, and we've done that. Now here's what your natural inclination would be to put this here, right? It's not. You're going to want to put that cut line right there on your seam line. So let's make sure we're completely lined up all the way around. There we are. Just adjust as necessary up here. And we will put that just like that. So that the bottom of that is riding right on that seam. And we'll go ahead and pin in place. You know, June Taylor's batting, pre-printed batting projects, I'm just falling in love with them. This, if you've been watching our video series, you may have seen the stocking one we did, the placemats, kind of pet mats for, you know, your favorite dog or cat. They're just always coming out with new batting projects, even some totes. So I encourage you, I just love the lineup of June Taylor projects. And this, how practical is this? I mean, I need towels in my kitchen all the time, and they're cute. So they have 2 purposes. Once that's on here, we're going to sew on this, but one of the things they have us do is kind of extend this visual line. And this is where I like to use my smaller ruler and a friction pen. And I'm just lining it up along my blue line, and I'm just visually extending that, and I'm going to draw that. Same over here. I'll just come along that line and draw. Now, we are simply going to take that to the sewing machine, and I'm starting here, and I am going to back stitch that. I'm just going to sew here to the corner. If you have a needle down feature, this is a perfect time to engage that so that you can go needle down in that corner, and you're just going to come to needle down in this corner, and you're just going to come all the way around your shape, come all the way off, back stitching, and then we will take you to, let's get started, and then we will take you on to the next step. And before I get started, I left these here to remind myself to tell you in case I forgot. Especially as we start getting into the toweling and turning the edges under twice, that's a lot of bulk you're going through. This is why I recommend the jeans needle from Schmetz. It's a heavier duty needle meant to go through the bulkier fabric that's coming up. This is a size 100/16. That is what's in my machine right now. So let's get started. I'll be using a starter strip. And again, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to backstitch this. So I've sewn that, and let's just remove the pins, and now you'll just cut 1/4 inch around your shape. You could use a rotary cutter, you know, I've got a pair of Kai scissors here. When I got my first one of these done, oh gosh, it's just like one of those things where you have to do it again because it was so much fun. And there's so many combinations that you could be doing. And such an affordable, you know, nice decorative item to add to the kitchen or give as a gift. Let me take my starter strip off. Put that back. All right. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Now, they also recommend in the instructions to go ahead, I think they actually say to just kind of clip where you need to relieve that pressure. I always like to do that here for sure. In those corners, we're going to turn this through. And maybe just right at that tip there, maybe over here. I don't think you need to do, we didn't do that much trimming, honestly. It just turned beautifully. And I'm going to be using a point-to-point turner. Boy, that is just an awesome tool for this project. It makes turning it through so quick and easy. So that's right here. It's got the pointy end and kind of the shovel here. Awesome tool. I don't really have that many notions in my sewing room. I think I've told you that before if you've watched any of my previous videos. Like there's some people, like if a notion comes out, they have to buy it. And for me, I have to know why I'm buying it. You know, is this just something else to have in my sewing room, but I'm never going to use that? Or am I really going to use it and it's effective, it saves me time, or it makes my sewing more accurate, more enjoyable? See, like I can't, like I'm literally trying to push this through with my hand. There's just no way I'm going to get that. But with this portion, I'm going to go ahead and be able to just push all that out easily. You can use both ends to kind of get it, just figure out what works best for you. It does jobs that I could never do with my fingers, that's for sure. There we go. Just kind of can't get in those corners, but this tool can. And it's super strong. I've had metal ones of these before, and I've pushed so hard I've actually bent them. So I love that this is a really thick, kind of heavier duty plastic that is not going to break. So I'm going to press that out all the way around. If you're going to be making any of these, well, really anything you ever turn through and you know you're going to need either that point or kind of that curvature, just get it. And most turners are actually only a single point. They don't have the curve aspect to it. So I think that makes this even more useful. I want that point out. Let's get that point out. It's bugging me. I want that out. There we go. I could never have gotten that with my fingers. See how it's out now? I knew it was in there. All right, let's take that to our pressing mat, and I want to press it out good and flat. And I think that iron turned off. So I'll heat that back up. But I just want to have it all nice and pressed out and ready to go. And I'm also going to confirm that if that's my front and I bring my flap over, my writing is correct, and it is. Now you could do the buttonhole at this point if you wanted to. I'm going to actually do that step a little bit later. Let's jump right into how to prepare the toweling that will actually now insert into the upper portion. So I'll put that aside, and let's jump over to the toweling. So we know we've already zigzagged it, we've already pre-washed it, we've already trimmed it up as far as that kind of frayed edge. We've got it cleaned up. Now the instructions have us taking one or the other of the long side, and you're going to fold that under 1/4 of an inch and fold it over again 1/4 of an inch. And this is where I love my mini Wonder Clips. I really just don't want to be dealing with pins at this point. So we can just roll that and just roll it again. Now with the mini Wonder Clips, and really with any Wonder Clips, there's two sides. I want to show this to you. There's the nice flat side and then the curved portion. We of course want to have that flat portion be on the very bottom. I will be sewing from this side down, so I will have the colorful side up. Some Wonder Clips are clear, but this is one of the reasons I really like the colored ones, because I know if I have the colored side up, then I'm correct, and that the clear side is on the bottom. So that's one of the other reasons I love them, because they're colorful, but it also helps me know that I've got the right side up and the flat side is now down. So you'll continue like this and only on one of the sides of your toweling. And you'll just come over the sewing machine and stitch. Now I've done that ahead of time just to save us time. There's other steps I want to be going over with you in more detail. This is nothing that you would expect differently. I just did a stitch right down where I had clipped. So I'll put this aside for now. So we've got the raw edge, and we've got the one we just sewed. Now is when the trim piece comes in. That at first I thought, how's that trim piece going on? Are they going to cut the toweling? No, it's super cool how they did this. I love it. So you have your piece. This is 2 by 22.5. Now I want to mention, they specifically measure 2 inches by 22.5. What we found is our towels, some of them shrunk differently than others. You may find that your towel is shorter than, well, this is a perfect example. Your towel is actually shorter than the 22.5 inches. No worries. You can just kind of position that where it's going to go, and I'm gunning just a little bit ahead of myself, and we'll just trim that off later. So don't worry if your toweling, once it shrinks down, is a different size than your strip. We're going to use a product called a hot ruler. And I know one of the instructions inside here is to have, it has you fold the edges a 1/2 inch. Well, you want to have, look how beautiful and symmetrical this is. You don't want to have a varying width of trim here. You want it to be exactly that. I like precision. You might be one of those types of people that really enjoys precision as well. And we need tools that help us to get there. This is why I love the hot ruler. Regular conventional rulers that are plastic are going to melt as soon as they're in contact with this heat. Now I'm going to get that iron heating up for us. With the hot press ruler, this is absolutely heat resistant. You can heat this up, you can steam this, and nothing's going to happen. It doesn't warp, it doesn't fade, it just performs over and over. Now, as you can see, there's multiple measurements. These major lines that you're seeing are 1/2 inch increments. So what I will be doing is I'm going to lay my hot ruler on here, and I'm just going to bring that edge up to it. So let's just pretend like I went here. I'm obviously, it's too wide, right? So I'm just going to scoot that over. I want to make sure you can see that with the overhead camera too. And I'm just going to fold that edge over. So let's say that I had this kind of cattywampus. See how you could tell right away? That's why I love this ruler. I can make sure that my trim is truly a 1/2 inch all the way up. I can steam this. Watch how the ruler doesn't care. It just says, no problem. I'm going to show you where your measurement is. And now I just take it and slide it up. And again, we just continue. Where's my 1/2 inch? I adjust as necessary. And it's going to fold nice and firm right over the edge. And again, we go back. So you get it. The hot press ruler, worth its weight in gold. Absolutely love this product, and I use it all the time. Every time I have an edge where they say, you know, a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch or even 1/4 of an inch, if it's a cotton fabric, I absolutely use it because I want to be precise. I don't want to be approximate. You'll do that all the way down on both sides, so you'll have both of them pressed in. I'm just going to, wish I had one of those done ahead of time. I'm just going to press this real fast so you can just get a quick visual of what we've got going on here. I would and did use the hot press ruler on all of these, but for just time's sake, and you can see it's not even, it kind of is wandering a little bit because I just winged it. What our pattern has you do is measuring I believe a 1 3/4, let me double check my measurement here. With this trim piece, yes, 1 3/4 up from your hemmed edge, and this is again where I love this little ruler. I'm just going to figure out where is my 1 3/4. Let's see, 1 1/4. And I'm just going to lay that trim. Now this is on the front side. I've got my rolled hem, seam is to the back. I'm now looking at the front of the towel, and you're just going to lay that down there. And you'll just measure all the way down, and you'll pin, and you're just going to sew 1/8 of an inch on this side, 1/8 of an inch on this side. And again, remember how we said our strip is longer than the toweling? No worries. You just trim it away. Whatever's excess, you're just going to trim off both edges. I've done that step ahead of time, so let's just bring this out. And that's what it looks like. Isn't that cool? I thought, when I initially saw this project, I thought, are they cutting that toweling and like inserting that? No, they're just kind of applicating it on. I thought that was a really cool feature. So let's get this one out of the way. So we're now here, right? We've got our bottom edges hemmed, we've got our accent trim on, but we know we have these two edges to deal with. Just like you did before, I'll now turn this so it's trim side down. We're going to come in 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch again and clip. This is really when the jeans needle comes into play, especially in these corners right here. There's a lot of bulk right there. That's where, in fact, I'll straight up tell you, on one of the towels I made, I forgot to change my needle into the jeans needle, and I was using a lighter weight needle, and I broke it. I broke it over on one of these ends that has that kind of thicker kind of ribbing. So I definitely was like, oh, okay, there is something truthful about these beefier needles, because as soon as I changed into that thicker needle, it was no issue at all. So I'm learning a lot, to be honest with you. You know, as quilters, we use a size 80-12 like all the time. And as I'm progressing through bags and now toweling, I'm stretching my legs. I'm even going to show you how to use a buttonhole presser foot today. So exciting. I'm really stretching my ability to learn how to use other pieces of equipment with my machine. And just like, yeah, there really is a time when you change needles. There is a time when you change, thread weight. So on the one edge, you'll do this here. Now, I want something Tammy mentioned to me, because she made the first couple towels, is anytime you have the bulkier rolled end, you don't want to start there. That's a place you want to end. Your machine is already going. But you and I both know that when you start in a really bulky section, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Sometimes you can't, but in this case you can. So I definitely start up here and sew. Now on this end, because it's thicker, this is the area that gave me challenge, and this is where I broke a needle. You can absolutely fold that down 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch again, but can you imagine starting here? For that reason, what we did, you have two options here. You could, first off with the chrome, the denim needle, you're going to be okay. You can still fold this under 1/4 and fold it under again but don't start here. What that's going to mean is if I'm not starting here, that means I'm starting down here. So basically I would flip my project over and I would be stitching from this side. So that's just something that Tammy pointed out to me and I wanted to pass on to you, that you just don't want to start down in this area. You just might not get going. So the other thing you might want to think about, because this is really already finished and it's behind, notice how when we did our pleating, this section is actually behind. You're not really going to see it. One of the other things that you can do is maybe just fold that over, larger. And just, there's less bulk then if it's folded over just one time. So these are just some things you might want to play around with or consider. If you don't mind your toweling being a little bit narrower, you might even consider trimming that off entirely. And yes, your toweling might be just a little bit narrower, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. So that's just something else for you to think about. We went ahead with all that consideration and we just stitched those down. So we've done that ahead of time. And that's where this is right here. Let's see, what did we decide to do on this one? We did do the double fold on both ends, it looks like. So, and we did it with the chrome needle, the denim needle, and it worked beautifully. So now we've got our trim on. We have 3 sides that have a nice double folded twice and stitched. Now, how do we get this inside this? This is kind of cool. This took me a little bit of practice. So let me show you what I did. The first thing, I have the trim away from me. Let me get a little bit of space here. Our goal is to get this inside of here. Now let me show you how we did that. Basically, there was a large center and 2 pleats to the side. You can pleat it however you want. They don't go into great detail on here, but I'll just show you what we did, and maybe you can, if you like that, you can adopt that. The first thing that they recommend that you do is really kind of measure the width of what you have. And this looks like I'm just a little bit over 20 inches, but I'm going to kind of bracket this so that my midpoint is right about 10 and a quarter. So I'm right about here. Here's another nice way to find your center. Just fold it in half, kind of pinch that, and I'm going to put a little wonder clip right here. Our pleats are all going to be based on our center. Now I'm just going to put this on a measurement that makes 25. I am going to make this entire pleating be, once it's all gathered up, to be 6 inches. My opening is just about 6 inches, maybe just a little bit extra. What we found is consistently our tops were just a little bit bigger than 6 inches, but if we keep our pleats within a 6-inch footprint, they fit inside here beautifully. So the first thing I did is I'm like, okay, I need my pleats to be from 22 to 28. That's my 6-inch latitude. So the first thing that I did is I'm going to start here and bring this in. Notice how on our pleat we did tuck that edge in around to the back. So you can also tuck that, and I just kind of did it about 1 inch. This just takes a little bit of fiddling around. This is what I call in crafting kind of just do what it takes. So you just kind of adjust it, kind of fiddle around with it. I go back to my 25 and I kind of say, okay, are my pleats, are they kind of within, I have 3 inches and my pleats are too big. So I just adjust them. So I think what I'm going to do is make my pleat in the back bigger. I might even put a little press in that one. Let's say we want that there. Less to hang on to. Maybe that. And maybe that. Let's check it. Ooh, I think I'm pretty good here. I feel like that's just a little bit wide. Let me tuck that in a little bit more. We know we have to have it narrower than our opening or it's not going in. Okay. All right, I'm there. Let me grab those Wonder Clips. And we're just going to clip that in place. We don't want anything moving right now. Let me turn that over. You can see all this gathering is going to be some bulk, and that's why, again, that needle is so important. And it's a non-issue plowing through all of this. Okay, that's in place. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to start out here. I'm going to kind of say, all right, I tucked that under about 1.25 inches, maybe a little more than that. Let's start with that again. It really kind of helped to iron that down. It was just one less thing to work with. And my goal is to make my pleats be even. So if my pleats are like this here, I want to do the same on this side. So we said our boundary is 22 to 28. I feel like I'm there. I got lucky on this side. It went pretty fast. And that's normal, right? We're doing a new thing. It takes a while to figure it out, but that's part of the fun. And the next time you make it, it'll be just that much quicker. You know what I'm talking about when you make a project and you're like, if I ever made that again, I could do it in half the time. Because you had to figure out the instructions, I maybe had to do some seam ripping, but once you figure it out, you want to do it again. Okay, so let's just flatten out our pleats. All right, I'm in my footprint. Now what I'm going to do, this naturally wants to fan and kind of create an arc. We're going to keep it nice and tight. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we'll sew a 1/2 inch straight across here. So let's go do that now. So let me trim off my starter strip. Now you can, at this point, if you want to, so it kind of just keeps us a little more compact, even be pressing those pleats in. It's not necessary by any means. It just kind of keeps it just a little more compact to work with. I might just put a little press in that. Okay. Now, as you would expect, we have, isn't this cool? I could change my mind now and make that the front, although my words would be upside down. So if this wasn't a directional fabric, though, you could absolutely do that. But now we simply feed this in, and I'm going to bring this all the way up until I really kind of reach my batting. I see where my seam is. I want to insert that to make sure it's not going to come out. How cute is this? It's adorable. So once I believe I have it even, let me just pin that. And we're going to sew right along this edge here so that everything is now not coming out of the upper portion. So let's go take that to the sewing machine and we'll make that right now. Oh, cute. I love it. I love it. This is one of those towels where you're like, yeah, it's a towel, but don't actually use it, right? Because it's so cute. You almost want it for more of a decorative purpose, but these work really well. I love the absorbency of this material, this kind of waffle material. I have some of these in my own kitchen, and they work beautifully. Let me just trim that up right there. Now, you've got a couple options here. If you are thinking you kind of want it more of a decorative thing, you could simply just sew a button here. But if you want to have that be able to be over like the handle of your stove, then you might want to consider putting in an actual button hole and putting a button there so that you can actually be taking that on and off. You know, maybe a towel ring, or again, your kitchen or your stove, kind of the handle. So I am going to go ahead and set the BERNINA up to do the buttonhole stitch. So let me set that up, and then we're going to go actually put our buttonhole in there and finish up our towel. So I've got my buttonhole stitch. I'm going to just iron my marks away. I mark that with a friction pen so that they could just iron away. And now with my seam ripper, I love the Clover seam ripper. It's super, super sharp. I'm going to insert here, and I'm going right down that middle portion till I'm about 3/4 of the way. Then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to turn it around. I might even go from the opposite side here. Probably just the opposite actual end. And I'm going to go the other direction. I have inadvertently before gone too deep and cut my thread, and of course then you just have a mess on your hands. It's very difficult to recover from that point because you've got a slit in there already. So now we have our slit, and now we are ready to determine where we want that to kind of sit as we kind of comes over the top. That's going to really depend on where you're going to be displaying your project. If it's kind of a thicker dowel, you need more of what's called kind of a gap up here. If it's your kitchen stove, like the handle. So what I recommend you do, wherever you believe you'll be displaying it, just take it to that space. Have your friction pen handy. If you're going to go maybe over your stove handle, and you like it about right like that, wherever it might be, just mark right smack in the middle of that slit right there, and that's where you'll place your button. I just use needle and thread. The fabric covered buttons have a nice shank on the back. It's very easy to catch that. Of course, you'll want to secure that several times, especially if you'll be actively using the towel, taking the flap on and off, and then just tie it off. So see how it is so easy to make these absolutely adorable and practical towels. So thank you for giving me your time today. If you enjoy DIY and quilt projects, be sure to subscribe. That way you'll be one of the first to know when we have new and fun things to make. So I'll see you next time.